the subcommittee today. Before we start, if everybody could please mute their microphones for the moment so we maintain the sound quality while I talk about procedure. And can everybody bar the committee members please turn off their cameras as well, as that helps to reduce any problems with bandwidth. Usually committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could everyone attending today's meeting please make sure their mobile phones are on silent and follow the usual process of avoiding any distractions which might arise. It's obviously very important, for what are obvious reasons, that those attending making representations are able to hear me and the members of the subcommittee and the officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I confirm that this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website so that the general public can view it. The formal agenda items are: 1, notice of recording, webcast. I advise the meeting to note this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that members of the press and public may record and take photographs, except where they're confidential or exempt items. Secondly, declarations of interest. Members of the room must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, the member must not speak or take part in the agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. 3, apologies and notification of nominee members. No apologies were submitted. I confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of October 2021. So those are the formal items. Can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect to the licence for Pint and Plates, 142 Garrett's Green Lane, Birmingham, B26 2JN. As I said, I'm Councillor Philip Davies, chairing the meeting of the licensing subcommittee today. With me are the 2 other members of the subcommittee, Councillors Martin Straker-Wells and Councillor Bob Beecham. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: the licensing officer, Mr. David Kennedy, the committee manager, Katie Townsend. I think Sophia Mirza is our committee manager today, and also the committee lawyer, Joanne Swampville. So on to the attendees for the hearing. Mr. Prasad, the applicant, are you here today? Doesn't have to be Mr. Bowser. Obviously, you're representing him.
Chair, an email was sent this morning to licensing department. Mr. Prasad has COVID, and notification has just been sent, so he's been unwell. Okay,
no, it's no problem. As I say, it's up to you who you bring, Mr. Bowser. You're here, Mr. Bowser, and we also had listed Mr. Abhishek Roy, the prospective DPS. Is Mr. Roy with us?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, Mr. Bowser, it's up to you who you bring in. If you bring anybody else in, we'll obviously be turning to you chiefly to hear your client's case. Now, we've had a number of representations. I'm not sure any of the representations of the people making representations are here in person. Actually, I can see Ms. Jess Phillips, MP, is here. Are you? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Welcome.
Hiya.
We also have the Mucky Pups Day Nursery. I have the names of Miss Margaret Jones and Ms. Paula Tidmis. Are either of them here? Miss Jones? Ms. Tidmis? No, looks as though you're on your own. How can I address? How should I address you? Should I just call you?
Just call me Jess.
Yes. I know.
Fine.
Over familiar, given the formality of the trip.
No. Just call me Jess. Is absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to clear that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much for that. Okay, everybody. Thank you. So we now move into the formalities. Does any person making representations? I think this is addressed to the MP. Want to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing?
I suppose if that's including me, I mean, I've spoken to the proprietors over the last week. I've communicated with them, and what they're suggesting about how they will operate and work with the local community is something that I would be keen to take forward. But being as the nursery isn't here, I suppose I will continue to say what the representations of the community, not necessarily my representations. I will.
So you don't
continue
want to
with that.
withdraw the representation?
No, I won't withdraw it. No.
That's okay, fine. Okay, obviously there'll be an opportunity to put that forward later. So I assume all parties have read and understood the licensing committee's procedural rules set out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note, given the nature of today's hearings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that it's taking place online, but I want to assure everybody that any amendments will not impact on the party's right to a fair hearing. We use the chat function, which I think everybody is pretty much familiar with these days. And what I'd like to do is just confirm we all have access to the chat by typing our names in. It also provides a useful record for those taking minutes of the meeting. So I'm going to put my name in now. I think this has become one of those rituals we're all quite used to using chat. Okay. We'll do that. We'll create a record. Thank you. Okay. And thank you for doing that. And again, if any issues in terms of communication, if you want to try and use a chat facility to alert the officers, they will tell me if there's a problem, if you're having a problem hearing or whatever. But I mean, basically just shout out is also the principle we allow here. Okay, I don't think anybody's dialed in on audio, telephone, rather Microsoft Teams, so we're all on the same system. And can I say, with the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you're the person speaking. This is helpful in terms of making sure there are no problems with the bandwidth. Okay. Now, procedurally, does anybody wish to make any preliminary points? These would be about process, not about the substance of the issues. Mr. Bowser, have you got any preliminary points you wanted to make?
No, sir.
No. And Jess Phillips, have you got any preliminary points you wanted to make?
No, I'm all good.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then again, just a little bit more about procedure. First, I'm going to ask the licensing officer, David Kennedy, to present the report. Then the applicant will be asked to present their report, and we allow about 20 minutes for that. Next, those making representations will be invited to make their case, and again, 20 minutes is allowed for that. So if all parties could follow those time limits as far as possible and also speak reasonably slowly and clearly so the officers can take notes. And if any time it's somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function if you need. Okay. Questions and cross-examination are not normally allowed other than via the committee members, and we'll be able to ask questions at any stage. If questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, they'll indicate to me in the usual way. If at any point you can't hear, you're losing communication with the hearing or having problems with the internet connection, please use the chat facility, but again, we'll be monitoring the links. So if anybody does lose connection, we'll suspend the hearing to make sure that we can reconnect. It might be the problem is caused by people still having their microphones or cameras on, and it might be that at some point I might ask everybody to turn the cameras off, including committee. Occasionally, it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in the meeting while the members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then return to this meeting and continue. Please note, if the live stream being broadcast on the City Council's website fails at any point, I'll ask you all to mute the microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If we go into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream, and then once that's over, we'll reconnect to allow us to go back into public session. And at the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission of about 5 minutes, and no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage, members and the relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision. They'll go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The meeting will then make their decision, and you'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Okay, that's all the procedural stuff. So what I'd like to do now is ask the licensing officer, Mr. David Kennedy, to present his report. So over to you, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Prasad applied on the 27th of January 2022 for the grant of a premises licence for Points and Plates 142 Garrett's Green Lane, Birmingham B26 2JN. The purpose of the report before the committee today is to consider the representations that have been received in respect of the application, which seeks to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises only to operate from 9 AM until 11 PM Monday to Sunday, premises to remain open to the public 9 AM until 11:30 PM Monday to Sunday. Representations have been received from other persons, which are attached at appendices 1 and 2. The application is attached at appendix 3. Conditions have been agreed with West Midlands Police licensing team and the applicant, which are attached at appendix 4, and site location plans are at appendix 5. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's statement of licensing policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under section 182 of the Act. The authority is required to take such steps as it considers appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives. The options available to the committee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, or refuse to specify the person as the designated premises supervisor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So now, Mr. Bowser, we come to you representing the applicant, and if you'd like to set out your case for the applicant, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, Mr. Prasad can't be here with us today due to his illness with COVID. It's been notified to the licensing team by email. With regards to this particular case, I'd like to state that for the record, Mr. Prasad has been running this cafe restaurant for the last 2 years. He's the proposed license holder for this application. And Mr. Roy, who's with us today, he's actually the proposed DPS. Now, Mr. Prasad has over 5 years experience in the hospitality trade. This is an overview, and Mr. Roy has over 10 years experience, okay, in the trade itself. They're offering a cuisine of Asian food, what they've done, they've actually Mr. Prasad is actually a resident for the last 4 years in the vicinity, in the local area, and Mr. Roy is actually only 10 minutes away drive. This is primarily for couples, families, individuals to enjoy a meal, and because they've been running successfully for the last 2 years and a substantial investment has been made of over £30,000, they actually employ a chef and 3 other staff in front and back of the house. So they've created employment for themselves and for other people. So this is, in fact, an application that states that they meet all the licensing objectives. Okay, so they believe that they do meet them. They've corresponded with the local police, and and you would have had that annex document there, that what terms that they've agreed on. So there's no point me repeating what they have already stated. So what this in fact is an application that's going to be run where it's not a pub or a bar, which wrongly some people have the assumption of, and what their aim is to provide breakfast, lunch, and evening meal. Okay. Now, in hindsight, the application stated from 9 AM to 11 PM. What they really wanted, nobody really drinks alcohol in that state from breakfast. So in fact, it's between 11 and 12 is what they should have stated. Although they open at 9 a.m., they should have stated 11 to 12 p.m. And then close at 11 p.m. Now, what the main issue here is that people think that it shouldn't be opening next to a nursery. Now, this is an application where it's asking for on license. The people will be drinking inside. There's two other shops next door. They supply alcohol for people to take away and consume. Now, as far as they're concerned, they have a reception desk where they cater for people to attend. So they'll have staff to take them in. There is no drinking in a pub style. It's a dine-in area. So people have to have a meal and then they can access alcohol. Okay. So that's part of our conditions anyway. And that's something that they were going to do as a proposition anyway, as part of the management team. Now, they believe that in this area, they've done checks already with the police websites as well as talking to their neighbors and neighboring businesses, other neighboring businesses, is that there hasn't been any antisocial behavior here, and they don't anticipate any because it's a local residential area. Okay, that's already been stated. But more importantly, this is an offering which is not available in the area. And the families that do attend for the last 2 years, they've actually requested that can they supply wine or can they supply other forms of alcohol. I must iterate at this point that the alcohol that they're wishing to offer is actually not high strength lagers, which is actually associated with antisocial behavior and crime, like beers, wine, cider, over 7.5% perhaps. This is just a casual drinking environment where they would have that with their meal. And that's essentially what this is about. So that's very important to realize that what their intentions are. Now, that's what I'll leave at this point. I'm happy to answer any questions or anything that I've made that is unclear. I'll leave it at that. May I ask, Chair, do I get to summarize at the end?
Yes, you do at the end. Yes,
Yes.
you get 5 minutes to sum up. So there will be a chance
Okay.
for you to.
Okay. I just wanted to point out before I just finish at this point, just one important point. As a licensee, we have obligations. Now, the applicant and DPS, they know their obligations, but more importantly, they could actually allow drinking to take place because it's a bring your own alcohol kind of situation where restaurants are doing, where they don't need a license to actually supply alcohol, but they can serve it with their food. So the people bring their own alcohol. It's a possibility, but they didn't go to that avenue. They wanted to be regulated, and so that they can provide CCTV, logbook, documentary evidence, and for that matter. So they didn't go down that route, but it was possible for them to do so. So I'll just leave it at that point for now. But it's something to think about from the representative, from the objector's point of view. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bowser. Okay, so members' questions now. So, Councillor Beecham, have you got any questions?
Yes, please, Chairman. One or two. Could I get some clarification on the capacity of the premises, please, firstly?
Sure.
Secondly, can I get also clarity on how smoking is permitted, if anyway, or whether there's a complete ban on smoking? And if there isn't, where is the smoking area? Thirdly, you were talking of bring your own on the premises policy. Would that apply even though you are having the full license asked for? Perhaps you could clear me up on those three items. Thank you.
Certainly.
Actually,
Thank you. So on the first question was the number of people that can in any one time. It has between 30 people to 35 as a maximum in as far as seating area is concerned.
Thank you.
Okay. Second question was, I forgot now. Sorry about that. Could you just ask that?
Second question. Smoking, but how are
Smoking.
you?
No, that would be at the front of house. Yeah, it would be outside on the front of the cafe restaurant. I can clarify this because the DPS is actually with us today as well. So I'd like to engage him, and he can answer some of these questions as well. With regards to the third question about bringing your own, apparently you don't need a license to let customers bring their own alcohol and consume in the premises with the meal that they're provided with. So that's something that's feasible, but we didn't want to do that. So I'm speaking on behalf of the applicants here. They didn't want to do that at the time. So they wanted to apply for a license. Now, if a license is granted, then they will not be doing that.
Okay.
But what we're saying is that if a license is not granted, say in this instance, then that's something that they can do if they wish. Okay, in the unlikely scenario. Can I just clarify something, sir? I'd like to bring in the DPS, Mr. Roy, if at this point. Is that okay?
Please do, yeah.
Mr. Roy?
Hello, sir. Hi, this is Abhishek Roy here. Yes, the smoking zone is already there in the outside of the restaurant, left-hand side. That's basically that's also part of premises parking area where customer used to smoke before, and we can still use that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, before we go any
Yep.
further, can I ask you to tell me whether people are allowed to take a drink out when they go smoking?
It's basically so it is basically sit down service, and hopefully people it's a sit down family service, and hopefully people will be having drinks inside. But if somebody want to have a kind of sometime like a pint of beer, they quickly go outside and have a smoke. So I don't think we can stop that way.
You don't think you can stop that?
Let me bring the licensing officer in, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, one of the conditions agreed with West Midlands Police is that no open vessels containing alcohol are permitted beyond the boundary of the licensable area. The licensable area ends at the door entering the premises, so parties would if they were allowed to take open vessels outside that door, they would be breaching that condition.
Okay. So sorry, this is Abhishek here. Sorry, I didn't know about that. So yeah, so that will be then. We won't allow them drinking outside and smoking together. Sorry, I was not aware of that. That law.
Okay. Shall I go to Councillor Straker-Wells now? Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got a number of questions. First of all, what security will there be in place? Secondly, will bookings be required, or can people simply come in off the street? What advertisement will there be to attract customers? And is this branded primarily as a restaurant? What alcohol will be on sale? And then the final one, and that's really helpful for me as well. How do you interpret one of the conditions given by the police, vertical drinking? Do you want me to go through these one by one, Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, vertical drinking, basically people who are drinking standing up, like in pubs and bars. Now, this is strictly not prohibited from our point of view because it's a dine-in restaurant, so alcohol will only be consumed while sitting down. Okay, just to clarify that. I'm sorry, I didn't remember the other questions, but if I could answer them one by one, please, if that was possible.
Chair, if I may?
Yes.
What security will there be in place?
So security from a cafe restaurant point of view, we're bound by CCTV for 28 days recording. but actually we've implemented already that in the licensing objectives. If you look on crime and disorder, that number in the application box itself, because CCTV is recorded for at least 1 month, but we've given that minimum between 28 and 31 days. So we've got a training log. We've also got a log register. So that accounts for things like Challenge 25, where age verification policy is in place. So no one under the age of 18 can purchase alcohol. Bear in mind that it's couples and elderly, middle-aged people and families that are attending. That's controllable, and CCTV is working all the time. And they are aware of proxy sales in the sense of third-party buying for other people. So they'll be familiar with that, because training will take place every 6 months, and that's going to be logged in the register as part of the conditions. You see, if the licensing is granted, they are bound by all these regulations under the Licensing Act. So they hopefully they will already meet the 4 licensing objectives, but in addition to that, they have these other things that are added by the police officer that was actually talking to them at the time of correspondence, and then they added those other conditions which you see before you in the annex page. So from that point of view, yeah, CCTV will always be present inside and outside the actual. There'll always be one camera facing the front of the building.
Okay, thanks very much. Will bookings be required, or can people just come in off the street?
For this question, Mr. Roy, please, if you can answer that.
Mr. Roy?
Hello, hi, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yes,
there,
there will be a reception desk in front of the restaurant, and then there will be like any reservation. The login will be there, so we will be controlling from there if anybody want to reserve any table or anything. But any walking comes, still we're going to take whole detail of the customer, and we'll escort them to the table from there, depending on the availability. So everything will be on control. What I meant is.
Thank you. And what advertisement, what kind of advertising will there be to attract customers?
Sorry, you asking me? Asking
Yes.
Mr. Bowser.
Yeah, advertisements is generally advertising is generally on. They've got their website. You'll see on Google that they have their menus on there. The kind of food and cuisine that they provide, all Asian based. You can probably check that out immediately right now. But yeah, it's a normal. The actual menu itself, it's one of these advertising, is self promotions. So you can have a poster in the window, but there'll be leaflets. So it's not generally advertising and dispatching flyers, but it's more of a referral thing where people say, I've tried this restaurant, so you can try it. So that's basically what advertising is. They're not it costs too much to advertise on radio or TV, as you can imagine. So they'll just have a leaflet or a takeaway leaflet, that sort of thing, like most restaurants do. That's how to answer that one. I just remembered the other question that you asked, actually, about the kind of alcohol that's going to be sold. And that's very important. I think that's one of the most important things. And just to clarify that point, no high strength alcohol will be sold as far as beers, lagers, and ciders are concerned, because that's what causes crime and disorder, and because that's what sort of people that drink, street drinking, perhaps they're the people that drink that stuff. Here it's going to be mainly normal standard lagers like Carlin, Stella, Foster's. They are up to 5%, that sort of thing. Now spirits, yes, that will be behind the counter anyway, but all alcohol will be behind the counter. It's not available to the public, and there'll be coolers behind the counter. So only the staff can serve the alcohol. It's not self-promotion in that sense, or self-purchase. It's always going to be behind the actual counter. So just to clarify on that point.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those questions, members.
Okay. Chairman, could I
Yes.
just ask the question concerning the nursery that thinks that it's going to be a problem? What specific things have been done to ensure that this cannot take place?
What specific things that can be taken place, but we don't see that there is any problems. In fact, a nursery is a nursery. The children are being taken in by their parents in the morning, and then they are actually come to collect them maybe for 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock as a nursery. So children are there in the first thing in the morning, maybe before 9 o'clock, to attend the nursery, and then they come to collected by their parents. So we don't anticipate any issues in that area, because this is a separate property. Remember, it's fenced off in that area, so we don't anticipate that thing. This is a remember, it's an eating restaurant and dining, so we don't anticipate. Mr. Roy, is there anything else that I've missed?
No, I don't think so. Sorry, I don't think so. There's anything. There will be any issue with the nursery next door, because it's a very straightforward. People will come in. We will welcome them, and then we'll escort to the table, and then we're gonna take order from the table. So it will be very nice sit-down service with family. So I don't think we're gonna go do any anticipator with the locals issues and those things. I think that area particularly need that sort of restaurant and bar. That's what the requirement at the moment. So
just to clarify the area, there's no obstructions. The nursery is attended by individuals, and this particular property, as you can see from the pictures, is also have their own access and their own area, their own space, so to speak. So there's no obstructions and crossovers, if that's what the question was. There's no crossovers in that any one sense.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for those questions, members. So we'll now move on to the objections and hear from Jess Phillips MP. So, Ms. Phillips.
Hi there. So a number of constituents have raised this issue with me, as I won't just go over the submission that we made. And it's interesting to hear the clients today saying that they don't want it. I think that the issue that residents have, and the nursery without question is the main concern for people, is I think that the issue that that has been clarified by councillors today is the issue of people smoking and drinking outside. So drinking is absolutely not going to be permissible outside. I received an email from the proprietor saying that they wouldn't serve alcohol until 5 o'clock. And that he wanted to work with the community. Then I don't think that this is insurmountable, but the objections that have been raised with me by my constituents are the problem of people drinking in the daytime or standing outside smoking in the daytime next door to a nursery. That is the main concern, and my constituents asked me to raise this objection. I'm sure that we can work with the proprietors, but it's just slightly sort of I don't understand licensing law, so excuse me. If they had to apply from 9 a.m. in the morning, I think that's been the alarming thing. Or actually, it can be moved till later, certainly on weekdays, I think is the thing.
Well, we can vary, if it helps, we can vary the times of opening. That's within the purview of the committee. So if the nursery has a about when premises should open, then we'd be interested to hear that view. I'm not saying what decision we'll make, obviously, at this stage.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, back from constituents, I mean, there were lots of people who felt that it shouldn't be offered a license at all, but that will always be the case when anything new is coming. So I'm reasonable about that. But actually, there was quite a big view amongst constituents that, and I'm certain that this is in relation to the nursery, is that the view of sale of alcohol, certainly on a weekday, obviously this is not necessarily an issue at the weekend, that the need to sell alcohol prior to 5 o'clock is not something that they feel particularly confident about, just because of essentially potentially drunk people standing outside smoking fags when people are coming and going from the nursery, and some of the safety issues with that. But you know, I don't think that people are being like wildly unreasonable about that.
Okay. Anything else you want to say?
No, that's everything, I think.
All right. Okay. Questions from members. Councillor Martin Straker-Wells, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, please. Obviously, a key one of the key licensing objectives is the protection of children from harm. And given that this is next door to a nursery, can I ask if you are reassured that the way in which the nursery has offered to condition what it's doing in consultation with the police, are you reassured that in fact the children in the nursery next door would be protected from harm?
I mean, I can't speak for the nursery. I mean, I was expecting them to be here today, so it's they're also an objector separate to my representations of my constituents. So I wouldn't want to speak for them and say whether they feel that what the police have said is satisfactory to them. So I can't say that. However, I think that, you know, that I believe that in consultation with the proprietor, with the nursery, and with the local police, that a reasonable solution can be found about hours and opening, and that would be better for the safeguarding of the children in the nursery.
Thank you. I mean, my next question is connected with that, and it's a fairly basic question. Is it possible for the two to coexist? What is in effect a restaurant with potential sale of alcohol and a nursery, is it possible for them to coexist together, despite the fact they're concerned with two very, very different kinds of business, if I put it that way?
Yeah, I don't think that this is an insurmountable issue. You know, my children went to nursery moments from a variety of different pubs, but and restaurants. I don't think it's an insurmountable issue. I just think that potentially the timings of operation are the issue.
Thank you. And then, Chair, if I may, the final question from me. Given that the applicants are very specific about the absence of vertical drinking, the absence of drinking for consumption outside. I'm getting feedback. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Seems better
Given
now,
the very strict conditions about lack of vertical drinking, table service, and police conditioning for training and safeguarding of staff, is this something that would reassure your constituents that the children or people outside the establishment will not be put at risk, that in fact it will all be contained within the actual restaurant cafe?
Absolutely. You know, I think that this would be a reassuring factor. However, the cynic in me is only too aware of, and this is nothing about this particular establishment. However, once these things are passed without condition, like, you know, I mean, I could fill up everybody's inboxes with areas where planning enforcement doesn't happen, licensing enforcement doesn't happen, and so just good relations between, actually the most important thing will be good relations between the proprietor and the community, with regard to you know, actually listening when there are complaints, without having to necessarily involve all the regulation, because the reality is that you could wait your whole lifetime waiting for enforcement. And the police in my local area are incredibly stretched without us saying that we should, I suppose, delegate our responsibilities to them being a security force. But you know, I'm not without sympathy, and also it's pleasing to hear about the training and things that will go on.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Beecham.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a devil of an echo on my transmission from there. Has somebody got their?
Yeah, if everyone can mute their microphones except for those speaking. So I'm not getting an echo now. So maybe Bob, that's all right.
Thank
Do you
you.
want to ask a question?
Okay. Yes, it's a question as to how you might think that the people that are taking people to and from the nursery, one would be without their guidance from their parents, and two, that this might be a mixture of people that you don't want mixing by some means. I can't see how the two things would be so close that they would cause a problem. Where do they exit and enter, and how quickly are people taken from the or to the nursery that is endangering them?
Again, I can't speak for the nursery's objections. Particularly, my children didn't go to this nursery. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know the absolute ins and outs of exactly how it operates and the pickups and drop-offs. I can only speak to the concerns raised by the residents that were raised with me. One of those was with the nursery. However, they've put in their own specific objections that I understand that they're not in the meeting, and so it's not really for me to speak to the details of the specifics of the nursery. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Is that the representations you'd like to make then, Ms. Phillips?
Yeah, that's everything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, we now are into closing submissions. So actually, back to you. 5 minutes if you want to just sum up.
To me?
Yes, it is. It's just the order. The applicant gets the final word. So, yeah, so you don't have to say anything if you don't want.
I don't really have anything more to add. Other than that, you know, I'm relatively certain that solutions can be found, but you know, the sort of timing is the issue. That's all I'd say.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So now I go to Mr. Bowser to sum up for the applicant.
Thank you, Chair.
I think the legal advisor wants to come in.
Could Mr. Bowser clarify what hours he would like, the opening times and the hours for alcohol, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.
So the opening times for this cafe restaurant is as stated on the application. Okay, they're the opening times. If you can clarify as seen the application, but with regards to the alcohol sales hours, that has been amended. Okay, the proposal is actually between 11 and 12, 11 a.m. and 12 p.m.
Okay.
And that will be finishing at 11 p.m. as a normal restaurant is. And in most areas, in fact, the majority of areas, 11 p.m. is the standard time as a close-in and alcohol hours. So the asking time for alcohol, as your officer just stated, is actually, we're asking for the applicant, and Mr. Roy as well has suggested that we actually sell alcohol from between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m., which is lunchtime. Okay, And then
Okay, can I just bring the licensing officer in, because he's indicated he wants to come into the conversation.
Yes, Chair. I think it is getting. Yes, Chair. Sorry, I think it is getting a bit confusing about the times. The agent is suggesting 11 a.m. for the sale of alcohol, 11 a.m. till 12 noon midday. I'm assuming. He's mentioned
No.
PM, but that PM would be midnight.
No. Sorry, the suggestion. Sorry, Mr. Kennedy. The suggestion is that we don't. The management don't mind reducing the hours of the sales of alcohol, but they wish to start from 11 a.m.
Okay.
or 12 p.m. between
Yeah.
those hours until 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah. Okay. So that's confirmed. On an application at this stage, you can reduce the scope of your hours that was initially sought, but you can't increase it. So
yes,
your actual hours for the sale of alcohol that you're seeking is 11 a.m. until 11 p.m. Monday to Sunday, and the opening hours from 9 a.m. till 11:30 p.m. Monday to Sunday. Is that correct?
That's correct. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay.
Is it possible to sum up?
Yes, please do. I wonder if you might address in that what training you're going to be providing for the prospective designated premises supervisor and other staff.
Yes, sir. So as part of the licensing conditions, the DPS, the designated premises supervisor, is a personal license holder. So he will be responsible to have internal training or external training, and they will be trained every 6 months with regards to the sales of alcohol. So this will be recorded and signed for. Okay, so if there's part-time staff there, full-time staff, they will be trained up again. If there's new staff perhaps that are joining, and so before they start, they have to be trained in those areas as serving alcohol. So we've got the training book. It's called the APLH book, the Alcohol Personal License Handbook. That's trained, and then there'll be practical training as well. So this will be done in house.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Mr. Kennedy's hand is still up. Is that a legacy hand, as they say, or do you want to comment again?
It is, Chair. Sorry, I'm lowering it now.
All right. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Bowser.
No problem.
But I did want to ask you a question, if I may. Sorry, Mr. Kennedy, your hand is still up. Is that?
No, it's.
Yeah, it's all right. You're having a technical problem. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Bowser. I did want to ask you about Mr. I should have asked you this earlier on, but I'm going to use the process now to clarify this. Mr. Roy, does he have currently a personal license? Is he a personal license holder?
That is correct, sir. He is a personal license holder, and he's had experience over 10 years. So he's the personal license holder. He's actually on the form as the premises supervisor.
I see. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. What else would you like to say to us?
I'd like to finish up in saying, having said, spoke to Jess Phillips. In reaction to that, I would just say this management and this business, in fact, as she very well may know, Mr. Prasad, he's actually part of the community. So it's very important to him because he does things within the community, not just recycling and things with his family within this community. He's done some work for her campaign as well. So, and he's actually emailed her as well, but unfortunately he didn't get a response. But the thing is, being in the community and working with the community, that's what he does. And so that's why it's important for him to run this establishment correctly and in the proper manner. So that's the reason he's actually living in this community, because he feels this is a great community to live in. So he's not only living, he's actually working in this community. And this local neighborhood have welcomed him because they are the customers. Now, if he does anything untoward to run that business in the way you think it will be adverse to the community, that's not going to help him. It's not going to help his investment, and he will lose a great deal. So because he belongs to the community, there's nothing he will do that will damage his reputation, his community standing, and if you look at his things that he's done within the community on a voluntary basis, he's an upstanding citizen. But this is a business opportunity where he's run for 2 years, and now he wants to make an impact in the sense of letting the customers guide him. So the customers have guided him, saying, apply for a license. He can very well, let's be honest, he can very well let people bring in alcohol and, you know, drink literally between 9 and 11 p.m. But he's not willing to do that. He wants to be licensed. He wants to be regulated. That for that reason, he's going to be providing CCTV, 28-day recording, training book, all of those things that you saw the police do. If he's licensed, he'll be bound by law to do that. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify those points to you. So it's actually in the benefit of this community that he is licensed for that very reason, because otherwise he could still let people drink. They won't be selling it, but people will still be bringing it in, and they'll be serving the food. So it's in the interest of everyone else. And remember, it's all recorded. So CCTV will be managed in that same sense. I just want to finish off with this statement. It's actually a benefit in the interest of everyone in the neighborhood and the neighboring businesses, as we are obliged to follow the licensing objectives. Otherwise, we are not required to do so, you see, if the license isn't granted. So to feel safe in the knowledge that the management have sufficient knowledge, experience, and training needed to run a business satisfactorily. And that's it in a nutshell. We would like you to think about the modification that we've made. It's actually essential that we have to make the business viable, because it employs 4 or 5 staff. So we really would like it from 11 a.m. at least till 11 p.m. And that's where I'd leave it at this point. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to us.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Bowser. Just a point of information, Ms. Phillips says there was a response to your contacts earlier in the chat. But what I'd like to do now is thank everyone who's contributed, Jess Phillips MP, Mr. Bowser on behalf of the applicant and his colleagues, and we will now adjourn to determine the decision. I'll now ask all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session while the subcommittee makes the decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So colleagues, if just take a 5-minute comfort break, and we'll meet in the private session at 11 o'clock. Thank you very much. That is the end of the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.